All right, Molo Sanbonani, hello, how's it? Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Liberty and Friends here on the Big Daddy Liberty channel. My name is Usikhle Ngobese, aka Big Daddy Liberty. Whew. Do I not have a bumper show for you guys tonight? So do me a favor, hit that like button, please. Do me a solid favor. Whether you're watching this simulcast on Facebook, YouTube, or on Twitter, hit that like button and share the link. Let your friends know that we're about to spend the next 90 minutes in conversation with a who's who panel of the friends this week. Now, we'll get into the panel in the moment. Remember, this is Liberty and Friends, the one long format show I have on the show. So we're going to spend, as I said, the next 90 minutes in conversation, breaking down the news headlines that made this last week with solid analysis, compelling analysis you'll get nowhere else except right here. With that being said, welcome to it. Just a reminder to everybody that we have a website where you can find us here on the show at bigdaddyliberty.com. There it is on screen. There, of course, you can also pledge some support to the channel by way of a financial contribution, anything between 50 to 100 Rand a month. Trust me, those funds will go a long way in getting us across the country. We're about to launch a campaign in March. I'm not going to spoil too much as to what we'll be doing, but except to say this, you will see me across this country in dorpies, in townships, in our rural areas, advocating for the liberty ideas. A lot of you have been asking, Big Daddy Liberty, you'll say, you know, you're preaching to the converted. Not really. Most people are not classical liberals or liberty-orientated, trust me. But nonetheless, you're preaching to the converted, you tell me. What about those who don't watch your show? Well, we're going to cater to exactly that in 2023 and hopefully match the politicians toe-to-toe. But I'm not looking for votes. I'm looking to persuade people to look for liberty-leaning candidates in this upcoming election. So find me on my website, bigdaddyliberty.com, pledge a little something, between 50 to 100 Rand, and help me please hit the road. With that being said, let's hit the road in the sense of getting the show going. Let's bring the Friends panel on. He is the host of the Manpatria show, the head honcho over at that part of the world, a liberty-orientated individual himself, Dumo Denga. There he is on screen. Dumo, Baba, good evening.
Hi, Sihle. Good to see you again. It's always good to be on the show. And as always, I'm looking forward to another great conversation.
Absolutely. And the topics tonight lend themselves to that. What a week it's been in the news cycle. But we'll get into that in a moment. Let me bring in the other leg of the three-legged poiky pot, as I like to use this expression, of the Manpatria show. He is, of course, an attorney, very busy legal eagle, Nzuzo Kathi. Nzuzo, for two, hello.
Hi, Sihle. What's up, Dumo? And yeah, man, evening to all your viewers. Happy to be on the show once again. Yeah, it's going to be a bumper of a show, hopefully. And yeah, let's enjoy it.
Absolutely. As Gesundheit to you. Gesundheit to you there, my brother. Last but not least, indeed, the fairest of us all here this evening. I'm talking, of course, about a lady, a marketing guru out in the battle in the Western Cape and beautiful part of the world. I can only imagine what it's like right now in summer. Absolutely gorgeous. Matching her, Nolu Maki. Sisi, Sobon.
Molweni Sihle, good to be here in this new year, and hi to to the other guests, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the show.
Absolutely, absolutely. We did have Gabriel Crouse set to join us this evening. I'm sure he's delayed by something. I'll try and get in touch with him in the background, but nonetheless, full house tonight in the sense of the Friends panel. This is the Big Daddy Liberty Show's Liberty and Friends. Hit that like button, please. Do me that solid favor. It definitely helps grow our numbers. And goodness me, have the numbers not been absolutely righteous? Thank you, dear viewer. Over 1,800 of you have actually joined since the beginning of January. And that is all you who have done that. Major kudos to you. Speaking, as the expression goes, speak of the devil and he shall appear. Here he is. Gabriel Crouse, of course, from the Institute of Race Relations. Prachi, Eitara.
Eta, hola. Very good to see you. Greetings to all. Thank you. And I'm sorry for needing such deserving such an introduction.
Homie, as I always say, better fashionably late than not arriving at all. Welcome to it. That is Gabriel Crouse, of course, from the Institute of Race Relations. It is a full house. We are cooking with grease, as I always say. Hit that like button, of course, and let's get the show absolutely on the road. Guys, unfortunately, my jipper happiness aside, it's been a rather gloomy, violent, and lugubrious, I'm pulling out all the synonyms here, week here in South Africa. We're talking, of course, the stories that I broke this week on Vuganazo, my morning news analysis show. The shocker, was a case of four individuals gunned down, murdered in cold blood by what is said to have been an armed gang of 20 men who stormed the KwaMashu hostel. But it gets even worse. Just as we're reeling behind that news, I take you now to Eastern Cape, where in Takane, I think is the area mentioned, over 10 people murdered, and indeed in a mass murder in that part of the world. Dumo, there's a problem in this country, but I'm even stumbling to word it out in the sense of mass murder has now seemingly become a normal feature of South African life.
Yeah, this is one of the sad things about South Africa. Life is cheap. One of the stats that are pulled out is that we got murder rates that are as high, that are comparable to war zones, and some have even stated, and I don't know if this is true, that the murder rate in South Africa is probably just at the same level as Ukraine, or Ukraine is lower than ours, even though there's a war there. So this is a very sad situation to be in, and I think that this can stem from many factors, right? So it could be upbringing, it could be that situations in people's lives have either, I wouldn't say forced them to do something like that, but forced them to join gangs or forced them to join criminal organizations. And as a result of that, they end up performing these egregious actions. Look, I mean, I haven't been following the news as I should, but I mean, one of the things about murder in South Africa is that now we become so desensitized to it that when you hear stories like the ones that happen in KZN and also the Eastern Cape, some people go, yeah, that's South Africa. Even now today, I just heard like one soccer player now, 19 years old, got stabbed, and it's really, really terrible. I mean, remember, the mass shootings, I mean, this is not the first of its kind. I remember not too long ago, there was an incident in Soweto as well. And when that happened, Bheki Cele came along and, parading. And he's like, we got the police, everything like that. And I remember there was one citizen there in Soweto who said, you know what, we need to arm ourselves. And the person, I think the reporter was like, why do you need to do that? And then he's like, no, because when Bheki Cele and them are gone, we are vulnerable again. So we have to protect ourselves. And I think that's another thing that's going to come out of this, is that people are going to say, well, look, how can you make our community safer? And the best and most efficient way is obviously through competent gun ownership.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And before I even get to that part of the discussion, I'm going to jump to Nolu, because there's something to be said, Nolu, about uBheki Cele as a character, as a politician, failed one, and worse yet, as a failed politician, placing that same politician in as important a portfolio as law enforcement, which, as you'll know, from my particular worldview, is one of the few legitimate functions of government, that is maintaining peace and order and law and order in a society. But we have as I like to describe him on the show, an asshat of a police minister in uBheki Cele, who in a sense has become the minister of condolences, because he always rocks up, of course, with a throng of media, as Dumo rightly described, after something like this has happened. Let me be precise and specific. Dumo reminded us about those 15 people who were murdered, gunned down at a Soweto tavern. There was also another story that I covered in Vuganazo 80 for those who might be wondering, of a Eastern Cape man in a very rural part of the Eastern Cape, near Kunu, if I'm not mistaken, who, upon deciding that actually, no, to hell with the criminals in the area, the stock thieves in the area, he's going to take a stand, report them, do the right thing. Those same violent stock thieves, those goons, those gangs, then proceeded to kill 8 of his family members, including his wife. The last time I covered the story, that man was in hiding. And yes, as Dumo pointed out, Upehitele rocked up with a throng of police. What's wrong with this picture, Nolu? Why do we have a minister of condolences and not one of police?
Sure. Sihle, in my language, we say akusakho mgangatho in this country, particularly to this governing party, which is the ANC. Everything we have has just gone to zero, because there's no way that we can have this outrageous amount of crime in our communities. Just now, yesterday, as I was talking to my mother, she was telling me about another shooting that happened around in the area there. I think 8 people they were shot there, and a couple died. So, and she was telling me that this is just becoming a norm now, so much that it's scary to walk at night. Of course, that one has really become a norm where you say in our townships it's become so it becomes difficult for you to walk around at night. So for me, I just think that you just need to arm yourself in however way possible. And as I said before, I think our townships, I do believe they'll rise up against this. And of course, it's clear. I mean, even if I were to say everyone can see Bekele is just useless. Same with his president, of course, that he has to answer to. So what do you say about that then? That means the guy will remain there. Maybe we need to go out on our streets and say Bekele should leave his office. But for me, that's my take, that you just need to stay safe in this country in however way and possible that you can be. But it's becoming a nightmare. It's becoming difficult for you to do that if, for instance, you can't afford a gun or you can't afford to have security in your household, or you can't even afford to be in a safer neighborhood. So therefore, you have to stay in our townships. Because of that, you know very well that you are living a scary life. So yeah, that's my take on that one. Sihle is not around, so I'd say, Nzuzo, what's your take?
Just throwing the hospital pass to me, man. Yeah, man. Like, you guys are on point with all your opinions on this matter. For me, some of these criminals are just brazen, man. Like, they don't even have the audacity. It's their world right now. We just visitors. We live in fear every single day. We lock up. We have, burglar bars. We have doors that have up to 2 locks. Our cars, we make sure that they are locked when we're at the mall. And we also fear for anything happening at the mall. One thing I also seen that's, well, not necessarily it's on the rise, but it looks like it's also a norm, is cash in high transit now, or cash in transit heights now, that have increased a lot over the week, past month or so. Every single week there's a cash in transit heist that happens on the roads, and it's shocking to see how brazen these guys are, and how much even communities where these heists happen, they also now collect from that truck whatever they can get. We also saw obviously the looting of the meat. People are just taking whatever they can get, and essentially, they take anything that they can get. Their hands on, even if they do it illegally, and our law enforcement is nowhere to be seen. Our law enforcement has now relegated to itself to supporters in the state.
Let me come in there, because I want to ask a specific question. Oh, my line seems to be absolutely terrible, even as I'm saying that.
Your image is a bit sticky, but we can hear you pretty smoothly.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just ask the question, and I'll fix the issues as I go along. Apologies to my viewers. We are literally building it as we fly it tonight, so apologies for that. But Nzuzo, let me hit you with a question, because you're an attorney, Bafo. You work in the courts in this country, and if there's one thing I'm hearing consistently from the legal fraternity, is the absolute breakdown of the rule of law by way of law enforcement, and specifically the South African Police Service, where even the quality of dockets that are being handed over to prosecutors leaves much to be desired, to the point where we're therefore seeing these criminals walk free in some cases because of the mishaps and the absolute breakdown of SEPs. Your experience in this regard?
Actually, CK, you really touch on an issue that that the legal fraternity has spoken a lot about recently, and that is the breakdown of rule of law. And there's an example that I would like to also bring to the attention of the viewers is that in December, the Hawks, they actually planned a sting because workers in the North Gauteng High Court, the administrators, the registrar, all those guys were actually selling dates to attorneys and advocates. They were actually literally, they were literally corrupt, indulging in corrupt activities so that they can get money on the side. Apparently, to get a date on the court row, you have to pay 5,000 rand, and you have to go to one of the bathrooms to pay. So, it just tells you how corrupt the legal system is, the law enforcement agencies are, the court systems are. We're glad obviously that some of these employees were caught and now they've been charged and taken to jail. But it's still there. There's the Deputy Judge President Lidwaba of the North Gauteng. He appears to have no power whatsoever, to the extent where he also has to get knowledge of these things and allow the Hawks to actually do something about it and say, please, guys, can you please now take down some of these employees, because my court is being run like a kangaroo court. It's literally, it's out of my power. I don't have any powers. People are not following due process. People are not following the procedures that we've created via the rules of the court. And so, just going back to your question, is there a breakdown in the rule of law? Definitely. And you see that even in law enforcement agencies, you see that in the court system, and it's tapped into every institution in South Africa, even the law enforcement. So, yeah.
Even as you say this, yes, I even got a little bit of goosebumps, because it begs the question, what kind of society are you building if people's impression of the rule of law are two extremes? The first extreme is a downright police state, a violent police state, as was characterized by the apartheid government. So a police state through the prism of a white supremacist approach to law and governance. And on the other spectrum, under the ANC, a complete breakdown. As we say in Zulu, pit, a complete breakdown of the rule of law, where it's a free-for-all, and if anything, it's the political elites who get to the top. And yes, believe it or not, it too operates through a racial prism, for instance, insofar as BEE laws and affirmative action, or specifically using those laws, but actually having cadre deployment as a means of appointing or deploying senior police officials in this country, and therefore the collapse of the entire edifice of law enforcement. Gabriel, I want to bring it back to you. Even as I do that, let me just prime my question with you, because I want to bring it back to this mass murder specter that we're not beginning to see, but definitely on the rise. Don't take it from me. Here's the Institute of, I nearly said race relations, pardon me. Here's the Institute of Security Studies. I'll bite a little bit here from this. The recent murder of 16 people by gunmen in a tavern in Gauteng has put mass shootings on the map. But such offenses are fairly common. Here's the data. Brace yourself. Between 2017-18 and 2019-20, police recorded 314 incidents where 3 or more people were killed in a single attack. It's worrying that these crimes increased by almost 50% in that period. End of quote. Gabriel, a massive problem. There's no hiding.
No, it's getting more and more obvious by the day. It is disturbing. I think that the rise of mass shootings in South Africa also fits importantly within the broader rise in the murder rate and the violent crimes rate in this country. So Yeah, the Institute of Race Relations, sometimes we get a bit of flack for doing this, but I want to say not everything the ANC has done is bad. And they did some pretty good work. You can tell the murder rate dropped from sort of, from 94 through the around the 90s, the mid 90s. There was the People's War, that was terrible. There was after that, there was continued breakdown in law and order. But by the end of the 90s, going into the 2000s, violent crime in this country really did reduce. The taxi wars, the regularity with when people would hear stories about lots of people being killed in shootings like that, that all really did clamp down. The country was improving. 3 million jobs were added in 5 years. Economy was growing at 5% per annum. We were living in a place where foreigners wanted to invest. We were living in a place with not just promise, but with practical go forward on a day-to-day basis. And most people's lives were seriously improving materially, and in terms of relations with others, society was stitching itself together into a proudly South African space. But policies driven by the ANC, that some of them started then, some of the ones you mentioned, cater deployment, BEE, really starts biting in 2007, 2008. It gets this new leader with a very I don't know, I would say opportunistic political attitude in Jacob Zuma, who's ready to be carried on the wings of whatever, in his case, left-wing forces there are that are prepared to stuff their own pockets by breaking down law and order. Taking out the Scorpions was agenda number one for those members of the ANC who thought that the point of governing was to get rich for themselves. And they managed to do that pretty early on. And since then, taking out law enforcement has clearly been an active part of the ANC's project in South Africa, or at least a certain part of the ANC's project in South Africa, the effect of the party as a whole, I guess you'd say. And what's the upshot? The upshot is that the murder rate has been increasing consistently for about the last 5-6 years. Not consistently. There is a dip around COVID-19 when the police were just murdering people like Petrus Michels, Sibusiso Amos, Collins Khoza most famously. But, the over 50 people were murdered, it looks like, murdered or died suspiciously in police custody within the first 4 or 5 weeks of lockdown. They were killing people for drinking at home, for drinking at their friend's place. So again, Sihle, that flip between living in a country that is got like an apartheid era kind of police state where the police are imposing laws, but the laws are stupid laws, wicked laws, and living in a country where there's no police and no real law, and the politicians are just there to eat the money. It's like we have flipped. There was a period in between in the early 2000s where we were getting something else and it was working, but we flipped back into this mad, lawless space. The murder rate is now 7,000 people were killed, I think, in the last quarter on record. So that's 28,000 a year. It's well over 500,000 people have been murdered since the ANC has taken charge of this country. And if I can finish with a very sort of telling brief anecdote. I met Becky Cele once in SABC studio. It was flippin', it was tragicomic because he knew who the Institute of Race Relations were. He knew that we tracked their data and we talk about the ANC successes where there were successes, and we talk about the ANC failures where there have been failures, and that the failures are flippant, you have outranked, have engulfed, swallowed, spat out the successes by the time Ramaphosa takes it over. So he immediately, when I said Institute of Race Relations, you guys, and started talking a little bit about our data. But when he left the room, I think more than what he said, when he left, the way that he and his 3 colleagues, 2 bodyguards, 2 men and a woman, all stood up and then looked around the room and all brushed the dirt off their shoulders, and he flipped his hat and flicked the little feather in it. It was so stylized. It was so play. It's like living in a movie. I felt like I was in some episode of reality TV where, this is like living with the Kardashians or with Paris Hilton. Dude, that guy has much more in common with Paris Hilton than with a proper law enforcement agent in my view of him. Running around the beaches, chasing people in bikinis to stop them from spreading COVID through the ocean to the dolphins, when there's a murder rate that's climbing, when mass murders are climbing. And it's just reflective of an unserious attitude. And I think building to this winter tends to be when things really get hot, It's dry. The tinder's ready to burn. I worry about South Africa being in a weaker position than it was before the last July riots. I worry about us being weaker economically, more jobless people, more frustration, more garden variety crimes taking place, more mass murders taking place. Feels like a lot of momentum building up, all in the wrong direction.
You know, I want to end here because I want us to move on to the other stories. But there is a deep hypocrisy that gets to me, because often I'm accused of being, okay, no, let me not bring myself into this. Let me present it as it often is presented. I will say something on social media, and instantly, Nolu, I'm going to come to you, and then Dumo. Instantly, I'm accused of, oh no, they'll say, Big Daddy Liberty, oh, you just love white people, you want to be like whites, yada, yada, yada. You don't care about black people, you don't care about the townships. Okay, fine. Let's accept for a moment that might be true. Obviously it isn't, but let's play the game. If I'm the guy who's being accused of not caring about black people, what do we say about the politicians who effect to trade on behalf of blacks, who claim to trade, who claim to represent, who claim to do things on behalf of black people, who are given power to do things on behalf of black people, but who are happy to sit by and watch black lives be killed, maimed, raped, pillaged, destroyed, our spaces that we've been relegated to by a previous administration, which have not really been improved by this current administration, who are politicians who claim to represent black people. Those politicians are the ones happy to see black people die in mass incidents like these. And yet I'm somehow anti-black and these politicians get a free pass. No, it's tear-jerkingly angering.
True. And I think that's where our problems, I don't want to say they begin, when we want to just always paint something with over black and white. And that's what the ANC likes. Honestly, Sihle, I'm not going to lie. ANC, it's one party. They're evil, because there's no one who, they say they fought for us, right? And in their own ways, whatever that means. And so much that when they got into power, they showed us very clear that we were never for you, but we were for us, for our pockets, for everything that we want for ourselves. I mean, it's really crazy the way that they manage this country, because if you think about it, when things are ran well, it's less work for them. If you think about it, when they do their job, then maybe there's more money for them to eat when things go the right way. But no. The more wrong that, the more things go like sideways, I think the more they rejoice. That's how the ANC functions. And it's really sad for us as a citizen of this country, because we were told by our grandmothers, they tell us stories. Because when you play when I play with my grandmother and others, and they say, what if we give them a chance again, those Buddhas who were scary, And then, of course, you'd see that that's something that they never mtanam and soze, Not that I'm saying they would govern better or anything like that, but right now, currently, what we are going through, it's really just, it's just nonsense. And unfortunately, that's why we can never, as young people of this country, have solid conversations, because it's going to go back to, no, but you defending white people, that is why we can't hold Ubekicela accountable, because guess what? Why should we? If another white person who was in charge did the same thing. I don't know if he did the same thing or not, but yeah.
Yes, Dumo, even as I hear that response, it's so apt, because people like you and I often get accused of this. Why? Because we hold, generally speaking, classically liberal or libertarian views, liberty-leaning ideas. And for some odd reason, in this country, we've associated that with so-called whiteness, as you often hear black leftists say. Whiteness, they'll say, and you just love white people, yada, 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 white monopoly capital, hapati, hapata, blah, blah, blah. But here's the problem, Dumo. Here's where it gets interesting. Two points of hypocrisy that I wanted to chew on. Number one, the lefties often say that to us. I need to remind them, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, they were not black brothers. They were white as snow. And they pushed that communist nonsense onto most African countries by way of their ideas, not them physically. And our politicians, of course, are enamored by these ideas. And I often ask people, stop judging these politicians by their intentions and start judging them by their outcomes. And the question I ask is, are there less people dying? Leave aside black, white, and all that. Are there less South Africans dying, or are there more South Africans dying because of these politicians? And before you even answer, 500,000 people have been murdered in this country, Dumo, since the dawn of democracy.
Yeah, those are excellent points, and I agree with both of them. I think what has happened is that if you look at places where politics or political issues are discussed, there are a few groups of people who have been indoctrinated, and they push this, ethno-communist philosophy. And then as a result of that, they try to define everything in terms of race. And it's easy to do that because people tend to associate with people that look similar to them. And then it's just an evolutionary thing that we developed. And then now these guys are taking advantage of that and hijacking that to push a political agenda. And I think it's important that people should just be aware that you shouldn't be fooled like that. And, now it gets to the point where, you got incompetent people in power, or some would say evil, and, you're going to defend this person because he shares the same skin pigmentation as you. I mean, it's so shallow, it's so shallow to actually try and defend someone because of that, as opposed to what he's supposed to do. But I mean, as a libertarian, I would just say, if the state exists, you're always going to get this disappointment regardless, because the people in power, they have a monopoly on ultimate decision making. Therefore, they're going to create unjust laws that favor them, so that even when they do not fulfill the role that they're supposed to fulfill, they can always have the last word on what happens. And that is a terrible situation to find ourselves in. But again, these race hustler communists, they can't see that at all. And, then they make the conversation very shallow. And unfortunately, a lot of people follow them. But I think, going back to the murders, I mean, you see 500,000 people were murdered ever since the ANC ever since the ANC came to power. And that stat is not thrown around often enough. And if you tell these race hustlers this, they'll say, well, no, it's because of the legacy of apartheid. So they've already created defenses. But I think these type of defenses, they won't last very long, because at some point, people are going to be like, look, you can't blame apartheid on everything. The ANC has been in power for close to 30 years now, if I'm not mistaken. And now, really, I think, when are we going to start blaming the ANC? That's the next question. And I think people are starting to wake up to that.
Fully agree. Just give me a moment here. I had to block a bit of anti-Semitism on my comment line. Guys, let me just quickly remind you of something. Liberty and Friends is an interactive show. The comment section, you guys are very much a part of the show, but there are rules to this. I'm not going to tolerate racism. I'm not going to tolerate anti-Semitism, especially because you guys know I'm Jewish. And I'm not going to tolerate any sort of distraction or deviating from the topic. That is not happening on my line. For as much as we love free speech, I'm not going to tolerate people saying literally hateful things. I'm sorry. Now that I got that out the way, let me get back to this. Nzuzo, I'm going to give you last word on this, but even if you have last word, I'll transition it to the next topic, because it really does speak to, it breakdown, Jay, of law, of the law in this country. Lawlessness, people helping themselves. And that's the key word to this next particular story. Let me just play this short video. Just bear with me, please, as I load it. I take you now to the community of King Etwayo on the R66 in KwaZulu-Natal, where chaotic scenes of wanton looting happening in that part of the world. Let me just put this on screen. Just give me a second, folks. It's always difficult when one is doing this live. There we go. That's one little piggy. And share screen. Am I able to share screen? Maybe as I'm busy fiddling with this, can I just ask that people hit that like button, please? Guys, hit that like button. It really does help, and share the stream. This is Liberty and Friends. My name is Sikle Ngobese, and the show, of course, is beginning to cook with grease as we look at the news week that was with the Friends panel. This week we have Nzuzo Kathi, who, of course, is one part of the trio at Manpatria podcast. Also in studio is Dumo Denga, the host of the Manpatria podcast. Nolu Maki, marketing guru from Dipero. Make sure, please, that you give her content a like. I'll give her a chance at the end to punt that. And, of course, from the Institute of Race Relations, Gabriel Crouse. Now, let's hope this works. Okay, I can hear it. I can't see it. Okay, there it is. Guys, if you can hear this, can you just give me a thumbs up once I start hitting play?
Look at him, look at him, look at him, look at him. Fucking rubbish. Here we go. There's our driver sitting. Yes, the car's just loading up, loading up. Check out all of these fucking rubbishes. Pulling it through the coal, through the sand. Look at them. This car's full inside. Full of meat. Look at them. Look at them. Look at them. Chaos. Nice, guys. Yeah. Yum. Nice. Nice. Check out, they're stealing my meat. Ngiyabonga ukuthi utshontshe inyama yami, yes. I-truck yami leli, ngiyabonga madoda, yes. Ngiyabonga. No, ngiyabonga. Here we are, NZ1176. Yeah. There's another one. NO1734, stealing my meat.
Apologies for that. I mean, Nzuzo, the images here are absolutely stupefying. Can you just imagine, Nzuzo, just an innocuous act of a truck breaking down by the side of the road suddenly becomes license for people to come through, threaten the driver, allegedly, at knife point, and then proceed to break the locks at the back of the truck and steal produce that is meant to feed a nation, feed people, waiting for it at shops. But no, here are people coming to help themselves. Now, Nzuzo, I want to put this to you because this has been the response of South Africa's certain political elites in this country, including Black Land First or Black First Land First, and one Andile Mkutama. Two arguments have come out. One, it's poor people, Nzuzo, we're told. It's poor people who are doing this because they're hungry. Ignore the fact that they're there in cars, it's poor people. The other argument, of course, is from the radical black leftists, like Andile Mkutama, who told us, oh no, this is a case of land expropriation of our cows and our land. Viva, he says, to this nonsense. A soft bigotry of low expectations of black people. Nzuzo, please, chime in, Bafo.
Yeah, man, it's a shocking reasoning. It's a shocking statement to have made, specifically by Andile. For me, it just begs the question as how desperate can we be? In a situation such as that, can you actually literally take someone else's property? It makes me wonder if how would it feel if I came into, okay, let's say if they were poor people. How is it if I came into your shack and just started taking everything? Your meal, your water, your milk, and I just take it because you left the door open. Let me just take it. You come back home and look, everyone's just ravaging through your belongings. It's not so on. How do you expect criminality to be to decrease criminality in South Africa if you are the ones just brazenly taking someone else's property? I mean, some of them even said, yeah, some of them in the video, I saw the second part of the video would say, yeah, it's there, let's just take it, it's for free. Because it's free, let's just take it. You know what I mean? It's there for everyone to have. So it's just, yeah, it's a yeah, I think it's desperation to an extent, but I also think that it's just praising criminality, and it just, like I said, someone actually comes into your property and starts ravaging through your stuff. Would you appreciate it? No. So why would you want to do that to someone else? Even if
But
you're
there's a
poor,
key
maybe you
word.
might not have it.
No, sorry, Nzuzo, sorry to get him. I was
No,
just saying,
I'm
there's a
saying
key
even
word.
if yes, continue,
Go ahead.
so easily. Oh no, I was just saying that imagine, imagine someone actually just ravaging through your belongings. That wouldn't be appreciated. So yeah, that's what I want to say. Carry on, CJ.
And I was about to say, you're spot on. And there's that keyword as I was trying to get out of the notion of property, the very principle in this country, which is under assault by the political elites. And sure enough, what is said by the political elites will eventually filter down into the general populace, where people think property is nothing. Oh, why respect property and property rights? Gabriel, let me come to you, because the Institute of Race Relations has been warning about this for a very long time now, expressly also mentioning that certain pieces of legislation pushed by politicians, often in the name of only targeting land, right, actually goes beyond that. Because the protection of property rights, as envisioned in Section 25 of the Constitution, includes anything, really, that is owned by someone. Something I can say is mine, whether it's meat in a truck like this or even the truck itself. We're seeing a beginning of the breakdown of the notion of private property in this country, and it's being goaded on by politicians. Gabriel, you're mute.
Sorry, Sihle, thanks for the heads up. You're dead right. I sometimes feel a little bit like I must be irritating to some people because come from the IRR, we're going to talk about property rights and how fundamental they are to improving the lives of anyone who's listening in South Africa, and how serious the threat is. But if it's irritating to listen to it, it's so much more irritating to be on the other end of the failure of property rights. And that's exactly what was happening in that video. So, let's just remember the expropriation bill is on the floor. It's moving its way through Parliament. It's been voted on by Parliament. So it's now at the stage of the NCOP. We're trying to make sure that they have to have another public hearing process to make sure that there's as much opportunity as possible for people to speak out in defense of property rights. And against this bill, which says in short that expropriation without compensation is something that the police, the government will be able to do. The people with guns, the most guns, in a sense, they can come and take your property. Certain conditions, for example, if the government considers you to have lost control of it. So if you didn't lock the gate, someone comes in, then it's like finders keepers. It's not a proper way to think about things. I mean, you should lock your gate. This is South Africa. But if the truck breaks down, it's on the side of the road, someone pops off the lock. That doesn't mean it's a free for all for everybody else. But the expropriation bill, it limits some of the conditions to land, but it introduces the notion that the government can take your property without giving you anything back. And if the government can do that, of course, that's sending a signal to common criminals that they can do it too. And part of the concern that we've always had is that if you go to, I've been to, you and I both have been to some EFF rallies, Sihle, and Malema really does like to encourage people to take other people's stuff. He likes using this fascist language of, you can tell if someone deserves to be harmed by how they look, by their race. So white people are land thieves in his version, and so you can go and steal from white people and it's not a bad thing. But it doesn't matter what the story is that you're telling to justify why you're taking from people. You're justifying criminality with a story. Criminality is not a thing to be justified. When I watched that video now that you played, it reminded me of when I was in school. I was at a fancy private high school in Sandton, and I remember once seeing some sandwiches that had been left outside for some parents to come and enjoy after they were listening to some speeches about why they should send their children to the school. We were trying to advertise ourselves, have 2 speeches, listen to why this is a good school. Your kids are in grade 7 and grade 8, send them to the school. I saw those sandwiches. I stole a sandwich, and I called my brothers, my Saints brothers, said, guys, come eat these sandwiches. And dudes came, and they didn't just eat 1 or 2 sandwiches. We were eating all of those sandwiches. We were having a literal feeding frenzy. We were throwing those sandwiches on the ground. With 2 trays, enough sandwiches to eat like 200 people. It's not because we were hungry. It's because we were entitled. It's because we were selfish. It's because we got excited by the whole story. And someone said to us, why are you doing this, guys? Those parents are going to come out and they're going to see there's bread all over the floor. People have taken tomatoes, they've thrown it on the floor. Why are you doing this? And one of my buddies, I won't say his name, he said, oh, it's because we're black. And I was excited too. I was like, yeah, man, we're black, dude. We're going to do what we want. That was the story we had in our head. It's black, it's ours. This is our school. Those parents mustn't come to our school and expect to get sandwiches. Those sandwiches are for us. That was the story we were telling. Communists will tell you another story. You read the ANC Umrabula documents that they put out every year, those discussion documents written for the ANC, by the ANC, of the ANC, to understand the ANC. They said the R in National Democratic Revolution doesn't stand for reform. It stands for radical. The problem in this country is C. What does C stand for? It stands for criminality. Where does criminality come from? It comes from capitalism. Their notion, and they quote Thabo Mbeki, they quote Karl Marx, they quote this Latin American guy saying, as long as you have property rights, the poor people must steal in order to show the wickedness of property rights. That's the story that they tell. The essence of communism, Marx said, property is theft. So if someone is rich, it means they've stolen. It means you must steal more from them. That is a way that people have tried to live in the Soviet Union, and tens of millions were killed. It's a way that people have, it is a way that doesn't work in Venezuela, doesn't work in Zimbabwe. It's been tried, it doesn't work. But it's a story people tell to justify stealing. No matter what the story is, race, communism, it's not good.
And let me come in here. And Nolu, I'm going to throw it to you, then Dumo. Nancy, here's the comment that Andy Little Time, the leader of the Black Land First, Black First, Land First, gosh, asinine name. Expropriating meat without compensation, our land, our cars, Tressa, burn it, or go for it, is, colloquially what that means. I just want to get this comment off screen because I must do a quick housekeeping. Folks, we've just passed the halfway mark. I'm going to start putting your comments up on screen. Remember, Liberty and Friends is very much interactive. Hit that like button, share the stream. We're at the halfway mark of the show. Good evening, welcome to it. This is Liberty and Friends. Nolu, I want to come to you because it's those sort of comments, which, as I said, are absolutely asinine because they create that sense of entitlement that Gabriel speaks about. And I'm going to show you a video clip of maybe indicative of just how entitled some people are and how they play stupid when they're caught in the act. Here is a Medicine Sans Frontier or Doctors Without Borders employee in a fully branded MSF vehicle participating in the looting. Just listen to the asinine response by this man. Now, even as I'm just doing that, give me a second as I load it. And a reminder to the viewers, apologies for the language you will hear in this. Viewer discretion is advised.
What you doing? What are you doing? Why are you stealing my meat? There's a fucking meat on the back of the van.
You are supposed
wait, I'm gonna ask.
You are supposed to be doctors, not touching my meat. Then what the fuck is our meat doing?
Yeah, the driver, Doctor Without Borders, NES. Well done, my man. How indecent are you as a human being? But it's wrong, you can see. She's the owner of the fucking truck. Hey, man. Look here. Look here. Look here. Hey, don't run away. Don't run away. Nyakfuna in a van. Hey, what's up, man? Hey, what's on Dome? Come.
pardon me, folks, if you see me giggling away here. It's what he says in Zulu, which is absolutely hilarious. Basically along the lines of, bring your ass over here. But nonetheless, a very serious situation, Nolu, where, you know, here's a guy, and I must use the word allegedly, because the latest news on this, of course, is that that particular individual who you saw in a video was arrested and appeared in the Malmö court, where he was granted R1,000 bail. He's facing charges, of course, of theft and another charge, I think looting or something along those lines. Not looting, that's not really a charge, but I think something along the lines of participating in or aiding theft also, something along those lines. But nonetheless, Nolu, let me come to you. You can almost see in this guy's expression and almost, oh, I didn't know something wrong was being done. No. Excuse me, you know, there just happens to be 3 tasty morsels of leg portions in the back of my bucky. How did those get there?
It's not funny, Sihle. You know, I remember when the July riots happened and I debated some guys on Twitter, and I got so furious with what Gaty Mackenzie said, and when he excused the act of the people at that time, and he said that people are hungry and you're busy crying about losing your property, or let me say the stuff that people took that day. And I was so furious because I asked him, as a person who owns businesses, would you smile when people come and actually break your business and steal everything in there? And I was serious because my friend, I think I shared this before, her business, they took everything. That was a small business owner. She had a leather shop in Joburg. She was so furious. And that's, I mean, when politicians wants to gain, I'm actually getting back to what Mkhatama said, oh, that guy makes me furious. But you know what? Yeah. He says these things as a way of trying to, of course, make people feel, yes, let's take our thing. But at the same time, it's really, he makes us look as Black people as if we don't have brains. We don't have, a will to go out there and make your own things and have your own things. They want us to be these people who just want to take anything that doesn't actually belong to us to keep us in the state of begging, because it's a state of begging. And if you didn't notice in that video, nobody there, or let me rather say, most people had cars, which tells you they're not hungry, for goodness me. They can buy meat when they want meat. So we don't have that sense of respect. Of course, it's entitlement, as Gabriel said. And that's what the ANC wants, or rather, let me say that the radical, whatever you may call them, which are part of the ANC, because Mkhatama is the same person, the same WhatsApp group for me. They want us to be people who are entitled on things that don't belong to us, so that we may not own anything, so that you may not have a house, you may not have a car, so that we may all just depend on this wealth, this government who can solve all our problems. So for me, Sihle, it's really, it makes us look low. It's very low of us to just want to take things that don't belong to us. And unfortunately, as long as we look at the fact that what color of the skin of that person, then you can take. And I doubt very much, let me say this, if that owner of that truck was Black, I doubt if our people wouldn't take. Because when you're entitled regardless, whether it's a Black person or white person, you would still want to take. If that wasn't the case, we wouldn't be afraid in our houses right now, in our Black communities, being afraid of another Black person to come to your house and steal your things, right? So it's all a lie that they push to make us believe that we will take only things of a particular race. But no, they'll take all our stuff and we won't own nothing. And that's, as Gabriel said, that's what communism wants. So for me, the day that happens full force, I gotta run, because there's no way you can live in that kind of a society.
And yes, as we wrap up this particular section, Dumo, I wanted to unpack that last segment, or rather that penultimate point that Nolu makes, which is Black leftists hold the most racist assumptions about Black people. Let me be precise and specific. And I made this point on Voganazo, by suggesting that those scenes we're watching is an act of expropriation, is an act of Black people reclaiming what's theirs, quote unquote, is him basically conceding 2 things. 1, expropriation as a policy that they want, they being Black first, land first, ANC, EFF, and most of the gaggle of leftists in this country, they're conceding that it's theft, because the scenes we're watching there are theft. That's theft, pure thieving. Those are rubbishes, as the farmer rightly describes those thieves, stealing. And the second area, of course, that he's conceding is that he holds a low expectation of Black people generally, because in his summation, or in his assumption, Black people are the sort of people who, when they see something like that, just innately, they're just going to steal. And he then goads it on and says, Chesa, that's a good action that he's seeing there. It is a soft bigotry of low expectations, and really does characterize the Black left in this country.
Agreed. I think Andile Mlitama has, in my opinion, just put out a point. I think what he was trying to do in that situation was trying to gain some sort of notoriety, because again, he's trying to remain relevant. That's the thing, and I don't blame him, because that's what similar Black leftists do. They make the points that he makes, right? And they see the success that they actually get among Black people. And unfortunately, what this has done, this has really created a very terrible atmosphere, because now when Black people do commit acts of theft and so forth, now it can be explained away using Marxist logic, or some would say Marxist rubbish, because it really is rubbish at the end of the day. What people need to understand is that private property rights, or private property, is essential for a just social order. In fact, if people deny private property, if you deny any private property rights, then it actually means that you do not want to have a just social order. One of the most essential parts of private property is your own body. So now, if you're going to deny private property rights, then who owns your body? Isn't it not yourself? So that means that people can, dismember you, and it wouldn't be wrong, because you deny the concepts of private property rights. And I think these Marxists have not seen or far enough the implications of such. And then going back to the Black leftists and the bigotry of low expectations, this is just terrible, because at the end of the day, what's going to happen is that it's going to give an excuse to Black people to commit acts that in normal situations would have been considered wrong. And they can get excused just because of their pigmentation. That is dangerous, because if someone understands that, what are they not going to do if they have have a get out of jail free card? And I think that's the problem. They don't understand that, and also these politicians who like to push that, they don't feel the ill effects of it. It's us. Because at the end of the day, they'll steal from us. The politicians, they're going to be behind their high walls. They're going to have police protection, everything like that, and living off taxpayers' money. And taxation is theft, by the way, and living a lavish lifestyle. And then when they go around and they say things like that, and then they chill, and then we suffer the consequences, they'll be like, well, whatever. It doesn't affect them.
And yes, I want to come in here, because there might be people who don't understand the comments. Why, for example, I and Dumo are referring to these individuals as Black leftists. Why are we adding the Black? Is it because we're being racist, or we're picking on them for being Black? No. I'm using the expression Black leftists because that's how they self-identify. They self-identify through the prism of race. And that's what they've done. So they've taken what have been traditional socialist, Marxist, Leninist concepts and translated them through the prism of race in order to argue that, for instance, their ideas are beneficial for Black people because they are akin to Black people. So I'm calling them Black leftists not as a pejorative from my side, but it's just a descriptor that they themselves use. So just for clarity's sake, so before people start saying, hey, let me write a letter, an angry letter to Big Daddy Liberty. Stop being racist, blah, 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 blah.
Can I?
Yeah, I was going to come to you, Gabe. Go ahead.
I just want to say a small point about that. So, I sometimes talk about Team Black because there are some people. The foothills of Westcliff is sort of one of my favorite examples. Westcliff is like the old money, rich suburb in Joburg, Camps Bay, Clifton, the sort of very elite parts on the Atlantic seaboard of Cape Town, where my mom was an artist, so I'd go to these art exhibitions, and you'd see people buying, works of art for millions of rand, mostly white, and but a lot of them like on Team Black, and all of the assumptions, all of the politics that you guys have been describing, assuming that Black people don't want to make money, they want to take money. They don't want to add value, they want to grab value. Don't want to confront the history of apartheid, confront the legacy of apartheid, confront those demons and say, we're going to be better than that. No, Black people need to redouble the mistakes, continue, see government as the solution to get out, in the same way that the Nationalist Project was to help poor whites by government helping them out. This notion can be very prevalent amongst white people, Indian people, colored people. Anyone can be on Team Black. If Team Black means you need expropriation without compensation in order to make poor Black people better off. To me, that's like a simple litmus test. And people who think you're going to help poor Black people by expropriation without compensation, by encouraging criminality, by undermining property rights, by giving flowers to those who steal meat on the side of the road, or those who steal furniture from the shop and put it in their Mercedes-Benz, because this is some Team Black exercise. It doesn't matter what race you are. That idea is counterproductive. But that team identifies itself by race. And there have been other teams who've identified themselves by race. The Nazis, some Nazis were not Aryan. Hitler himself doesn't look all that blue-eyed and blonde. But he wanted to be on that team. And by the way, I happen to study Russian history. In the 1890s, when the Russians were having, 120 years ago, there was like an important nationalist, kind of neo-Nazi type movement there. It was led sometimes by Germans who said, the Slav just oppressive. But these guys are Aryan, saying that the Slavs are the superheroes and they must lead communism and so on. Calling themselves allies. But if you were to implement their ideas, it's going to have the opposite effect of what they're talking about. And we've got to be aware of that in this country, particularly because of apartheid, because we have this history where, things were already so split. But here's the good news. Most South Africans already know that this is BS. The Institute of Race Relations does these surveys. And one of the questions we ask is basically, do you think politicians are trying to use race as an excuse for their own failures? When something is not working out, then they try and play the race card to distract from their failures, effectively. And the majority of South Africans of all races say yes. And you break it up by races, most people say yes, within each race group and as an overall majority. And even more encouragingly, if you look at the numbers, I think from our last survey, it was pushing on 60%. Whereas if you go back 4 or 5 years, it was only 50%. So even more people are clocking on to the fact that this is how politicians get away with running a country into the ground, is as soon as things start looking bad, they play the race card. And if you look at the ANC's numbers, on the ANC's own polls, they're below 45. On the Social Research Foundation polls, on the Institute of Race Relations polls, on the international Ipsos polls, they're all below 50, mostly below 45. Some polls have them below 40, depending on turnout scenarios. And that becomes very important because the ANC and the EFF ideologically are kind of the same. And so if the ANC gets 42, but the EFF gets 10, then they can go into power together. But if those two parties together, the trends are showing that they are looking at possibly going below 50 together in 2024. And if they do, it's going to be because even more South Africans, they haven't just realized this issue of don't play the race card. Don't take my money and then tell me it's okay because you're Black and you've got billions and I'm Black too. I'm not interested in that game that they've been playing, making BEE billionaires and then telling poor Black people, don't worry, we're the same color, so it's fine for you. That game will stop working if that game stops working, not just at the level of in a questionnaire, but at the level of do you go out and do you vote? Do you go out to your neighbors and have the conversation? Are you willing to put action behind your ideas? That's going to be the thing I think that makes the difference in this country, either 2024 or 2029, is when that mental shift away from thinking you can trust politicians and you can trust people who use this race baiting game to trusting yourself and trusting your own common sense about what actually is going to work. When that shift becomes practical, it's already happened in the minds, but it has to happen in action for us to get where we want to be.
Absolutely. And we are speaking about making things work or making things happen within the last 20 minutes. So we need to make it happen insofar as moving on to the next topic, and one which I need to chew on. But that last point to make, Gabriel, is actually spot on. But yeah, we'll pick it up in another episode, something maybe that delves deep into this issue of the appearances versus reality, the appearances of the race war, race mobilization, race-centric society versus the reality of a South African society who really, on an everyday basis, aren't obsessed with race. Don't look at race as the first metric of deciding, everyday life decisions, so to speak. But again, we'll unpack that in another episode, and we need to bring back those monthly features of race hustlers, exposing race hustlers. We need to bring that back. Clearly, it's definitely needed. Just as a reminder to the audience, you are a part of Liberty and Friends, the show. Your comments are on screen, flighted regularly, so please keep them coming in. And with that being said, let me move us on, because here's another issue which has been the burning topic perhaps in the week. Busted, caught out, hand in the cookie jar, South African tourism and the tourism department caught out, looking to basically siphon off R1 billion from their tourism budget in a 3-year sponsorship with UK soccer club Tottenham Hotspurs. Now, that had South Africans' tongues wagging, with people wondering R1 billion for a UK soccer team. Number one, why? And number two, if you're going to spend R1 billion in the name of SA Tourism, leave aside that I don't believe there should be a tourism department in the States anyway, but that's a philosophical conversation. But let's assume there should be one. Why is it spending R1 billion on a foreign soccer team when they could spend R1 billion in upgrading local tourist attractions, which are in a dismal state? Well, that particular question, the CEO of SA Tourism responding to it in this fashion, basically saying, shut up, bitches. It's our money. It won't be used for ESCOM. It can't be used for roads. So we're going to use it to give a soccer team in the UK a 3-year deal so we can have our name on their jerseys. Listen to this.
Straight into camera and say this to all South Africans. The money that's invested in tourism is not the same money that's required for energy. It's not the same amount of money that is required for potholes. There are other departments that are dedicated and are given that mandate by legislation. Our legislated mandate is not about that. Our legislated mandate is about persuading international people to travel into the country and spend money in our economy. And that is what we will stick to. Whether it is through this initiative or any other initiative, but that is what we are mandated to do, that is what we're paid to do, and that is what we will continue to do until we're told otherwise. So I just wanted to place that particular context for what we're going to discuss, which is the topical issue on the table. Now, how do you find these people around the world? What you certainly don't do is you don't do random. You don't just, place an ad on TV and hope somebody's going to see it and that they'll be persuaded to come to the country. That's not what we do. There are aggregators of databases around the world. So you've got to find platforms that aggregate convertible databases in order for you to market directly so that you know that the people that you're targeting, 1, are aware of your destination, 2, have got the money to travel long haul, and 3, have got the willingness to do a long haul trip. So you've got to be able to access those databases. Now, who are the aggregators of those databases? One, global media, whether CNN, BBC, etc., all of the big global media houses are able to aggregate audiences, just like here in South Africa, whether it is Newsroom Africa, ETV, SABC, you are aggregators of audiences, and the people that place adverts on your channels are not doing it for your entity.
Okay. I have a glitch on my side. But I was just about to say, what? What the hell is this dude saying? There's a famous song in the early 2000s by a Kwaito artist named Manpatria. And some part of the lyrics were basically, beware of the manga business. A manga, of course, being a Zulu Onguni word for lies. Beware of that lies business, people. Dumo, I always say this, hashtag don't be dribbled. This man is dribbling us.
No, he's dribbling very well. And it's interesting that we talk about dribbling and a soccer team is getting sponsored. Definitely, look, I mean, if anyone took what he said seriously there, then you got a lot to learn. First of all, governments are just generally wasteful in the expenditure. When it comes to spending, they are the worst because they don't earn any wealth. They take wealth from wealth-producing people and then they spend it on vanity projects, whether it would be a soccer team in the UK, Tottenham Hotspur haven't won a trophy since 2007. I mean, I was in high school that time. That's a long time ago, right? And it just shows you there's far better ways that they could have done it. So I guarantee you that the money that was taken away from wealth-producing people to sponsor Tottenham just so that we can have more people coming into South Africa, it would have been better spent by the people who actually benefit from tourism in South Africa because they know their markets, they do the research and stuff. And even if they had access to those databases that CEO guy was talking about, they would have made better use of it. And I think that's the problem. I just think people really think that the government, if the right people are in power, they would spend correctly. No, there's someone who's supposed to benefit from this deal. I don't know who it is. Maybe 5 or 10 years down the line, we'll find out that it was a scam and everything like that. But the reality is that really the money, again, was earned through tax, which is theft. And also when they spend it on vanity projects and not on useful things anyway. So saying that there's other departments that are supposed to spend on the potholes is not an excuse at the end of the day. Because the reality is that even they are not spending properly. So I'm not surprised by this. This is just a spin session, dribble session, whatever you want to call it. Don't believe what he says, guys. Simple as that.
And as Nzuzo, even as I listen to this, and I have to bring the seriousness into it. Number one, the pompous nature of a fat cat government official shouting at us, almost admonishing South Africans. How dare you, he implies, suggest that I was spending R1 billion in the name of tourism. And then he adds all sorts of gobbledygook, technical speak to try and dribble and distract. Don't you know this money? We're the experts, is basically what he's saying. We're the experts. We know how to spend R1 billion. To hell with you, dear South Africans who can barely make ends meet at the moment. I've taxed you for this money. Allow me to spend it on taking money from poor people in a third world country to give it to rich people in a first world country. How dare you question me for doing that?
Yeah, seriously, I feel like for me in this topic, I might be a contrarian. Let me just start. Yeah, let me just start. No, definitely not. Okay, let me just start off to say that these guys obviously are governed by legislation. That's the Tourism Act, and it tells them that they must bring tourists to South Africa. They have a mandate in terms of the legislation, and that's And part of the budget is obviously to use this money to bring people across from wherever to come into South Africa. Now, this guy, if I remember the numbers, it's 940 billion divided by pounds. The rand pound currency is 47 million pounds. So in terms of sponsorship deals, this is within the realm. So I'm not necessarily a bit iffy about the price. Also because I checked the Rwanda versus Arsenal sponsorship deal. That was like 40 million pounds. So Rwanda had to pay also 40 million pounds to have themselves on the sleeves so that they can bring tourists over to South Africa. They've used that money quite well. Rwanda's tourism sector has increased as a result, putting their name on Arsenal shirts. And, it doesn't hurt that, Arsenal right now is doing well in terms of the Premiership. But in any event, so he's following the mandate and he's using the money given to him by firstly the tourism department, which also has a budget which also has a budget which is given by Treasury, and it's different. This is, if I'm not mistaken, this is the tourism board, SA Tourism, and so they're not the tourism department. The tourism department is where you can ask questions of why not using such money to help tourists in South Africa. Why don't you have the tourism sector in South Africa? Those are the guys that literally work with trying to build the tourism industry in South Africa. SA Tourism or Tourism SA, whatever they want to call themselves, who the CEO has been speaking of, they have to go abroad to bring people over. So yes, of course, I don't see the need of a tourism department in South Africa or in the States, but well, that's the budget that you are supposed to be using. That's the money you're supposed to be using. And Tottenham is, if I'm not mistaken, and please can you just check my facts, they're in the top 10 most powerful football brands in the world. So in and of much that they haven't actually won anything in quite a while, they're actually one of the biggest brands in the world. So obviously, putting themselves on that sleeve is actually going to bring quite a number of people into South Africa. Of course, now obviously, you bring over a UK tourist into South Africa is different from advertising what South Africa looks like as to them coming over. Obviously, they're going to be disappointed, but the tourism department, the SA tourism guys, they did their job and they actually followed the mandate as per the Tourism Act. So I can't necessarily, and also they have a different mandate as to ESCOM and also other institutions who are obviously supposed to be doing their work.
Okay, so let me stop you there, because I think we need to challenge this notion, and I want us to have this debate, because it's the debate that was playing out basically on social media. There's three components to what you're saying, one of which is a nested feature. The first one is the idea that, of course, SA Tourism must advertise the country and do so, in foreign nations, in order to attract people. And often people then make the equation to what the Rwandans did, which is similar, but with Arsenal. But here was my question on social media. What attracted people to Rwanda? Was it the fact that they were advertising with Arsenal, or the fact that when people then looked at Rwanda as a country doing their research on, insofar as it being a destination, they said, wow, it's safe, it's clean, it's got the tourist features, it's on the up and up. Basically, all of those factors were the overarching metrics, for decision making, or was it solely or primarily the advertising on an Arsenal jersey? That's just the first question. I'm throwing it to everybody, and I'll come to you, Gabriel, in a second. The second one of those three nested features is the idea of, oh, well, we had this R1 billion and we had to spend it. Whether they're SA Tourism or not, the usefulness, the ability to cast a net wide, the ability to do, as one of the comments said here, flashed on screen, market research. And Nolu, I'm going to bring you in on this one in a moment, around the effective use of R1 billion. Is sponsoring a soccer team really the most prudent way to use this? And also the last nested feature, of course, is that argument of, oh, well, laws dictate how we spend this money. But in reality, that it's sophistry, because they could have easily have said, look, like most departments do, we can't spend this money in this asinine way. Morally speaking, it's just inappropriate to do it this way. Either A, spend it in a more appropriate way. Nolu, you'll speak to this in a moment. Or B, if there is the suggestion that we give it to a soccer team, Surely someone should have said, guys, this is inappropriate. I'd rather we even bring the budget back to Treasury or the National Department of Tourism. Again, I'm just putting this out as counterpoints, but let me come to you, Gabriel, and then Nolu.
Thanks, dude. So I'm kind of with Nzuzo in the sense that I think that the department has to try and advertise the country through thick and thin, whether things are going well or not. But here's a problem. The Rwandan example. I was in Rwanda in...
I don't know if it's just me, but your line is bad, Gabriel.
Oh, damn.
I hear him clearly. I hear him clearly.
In here, okay. If you guys
Me
can hear
too,
me, go ahead.
CJ.
Okay, I'll try and be brief, just in case there are some signal problems. I was my sister worked in Rwanda for a few years. I visited her a bit, and that was 15 years ago. And since then, I was very curious about the country, so I followed it quite closely. Kigali in 2005 was the safest capital in Africa. The Rwandese police had just very different way of running a country to South Africa. You know, you could have a market. They weren't chasing people off the roads who were selling goods and services. You could get on your little scooter taxi and drive around and buy lots of stuff. There had been issues with too aggressive cleanups before, and then those were resolved. So you kind of found this happy balance of law and order and freedom and commerce and trade. And they administered that for a decade. Enjoyed 8% GDP growth, set 5 to 8% GDP growth for a decade. They kind of, they got through the genocide, then they got through basic rebuilding, got through their version of the TRC, then they got through law and order, then they got through investment, then they got to the point where they wanted to advertise themselves abroad and bring those tourists in. They weren't paying Arsenal to bring in tourists in 2005. They first crawled, then they walked, then they flew overseas to say, guys, come over. And I think South Africa has flown before and it's going to fly again. The World Cup 2010 was a great brand building exercise and a terrible occasion for a lot of pork barrel bad spending. And since 2010, it's been this economy hasn't grown. In real terms, we have less jobs per person and less productivity per person than 2010. So there's very few countries in the world that are poorer than they were 13 years ago. We are one of them. What we need to do right now is get back to walking. So Ivo Fechter, who writes for the Daily Friend, he wrote his analysis similar to Nzuzo, like he said, where he thinks the department could have spent the money better was on getting the glut in the licensing system through on licensing vehicles that can take tourists around, because he reports that the licensing department hasn't been processing new applications or renewals for years. And so basically 95% of tourism vehicles in this country are either operating illegally, which means they aren't properly insured, which means if they get in accidents, people's businesses are going to go up in flames, or they have to bribe officials to get the stuff through. Now, you need to fix that problem. Spend 200 million rand on fixing that problem, and you're automatically giving people a much better entrepreneurs that are helping tourists out, giving them a better chance to do their business. And the better they do their business, the better the tourist experience is, and the better more likely they are to come back or recommend to friends and family. So I would honestly, in 10 years' time, I would love South Africa to have added 7 million jobs, to have had 7% GDP growth, for us to be in such a nice place. We spend R1 billion on sponsoring Manchester United, a proper soccer team, and or whoever wins the championship at this stage. I would love to see us be in a place where we could do that. We can't do this right now, in my view, because there's more urgent tasks within tourism to be met with that money, and because the country, because we all know things are going badly wrong right now, and we need to get those basics right before we can get to the fancy stuff.
Hello, there we go. Nolu, let me come to you, because of this panel, you're the marketing person here. What's your view on this?
Yeah. So firstly, I think this comes from the whole thing of out of sight, out of mind. Number one. Number two, it also comes from there's a lot of negativity in the country right now. We know that currently the unemployment rate is very high. And we know that also there's so much, like I said, negativity about everything that is going on in the country, be it the load shedding, you name it. So, on that end, I do understand why the department would want to, let me say, to have a sweet deal with this sports team, in a way of trying to, I would say, to get us in the mind of a potential tourist that can come here, and also in a way of instead of us being known as a country that keeps on getting worse and certain things that are negative, crime and all of that, there is another side about us. Not that that side is us affording to actually what's this, sponsor this club, but rather that side is saying we are still open to tourism, right? And we're still open to welcome you in this country, and so much that there's a lot for you to see in this country. So for me, in that angle, it does make sense why they'd want to do this. But also, at times when a brand such as South Africa, because it is a brand, has a lot of negativity, that is why it would resort to trying to buy its way to getting the attention of whomever they want their attention from, right? Because remember, when a brand is doing well and it is strong, that brand speaks for itself. So there's less to do. Do you understand what I mean? Like what Gabriel has said, infrastructure, unemployment actually is going down. Things are going so well. The fact that we have people like Elon Musk who's raising the flag, the fact that there's so many innovation and all the things that are going in the country, we wouldn't be pressed this much to try and do this. Because remember, tourism also, it helps that guy who was selling in the beaches during the holiday season to make money. So I think for me, it is actually that's my opinion about this right now. And
Nolu,
my
I'm gonna
mic
have
is
to
my
tell you,
mic fine?
there's a crackling, scratchy noise. Can you just try again, please?
Oh,
Okay,
okay. Can you hear me now?
maybe just fiddle with the XLR cable or something. There's a crackling noise, and almost static to it.
Sorry about that.
Okay, but your point is taken. And guys, I must make the quick point here. We are effectively out of time. We're in the last 2 minutes of the show, so I must leave it to the audience. I see your comments are coming in thick and fast here on this particular issue. Nzuzo?
Yeah, I just want to just respond to what everyone said before everyone thinks.
Okay, sure. I'm just going to give
Dumo
a chance to chime in. Nzuzo, just a moment. I was going to give Dumo a chance to chime in and then come back to Wena to finish your thoughts on this and respond. But Nzuzo, pardon me, but Dumo, you've been hearing the flavor here, Lana. Your take on this very quickly.
Okay, the first thing, I don't think the money was, I don't think it was necessary to spend any money on any football team whatsoever. Okay? Look at Mauritius. Just saying. I haven't seen Mauritius government posting stuff in the Premier League nowhere. It's not even there. And they have and it's a great tourist destination because they've found probably great ways to actually advertise themselves. It's not only the government. Like when you go to holiday destination, especially if it's part of a big franchise, they'll say, listen, we've got a hotel in Mauritius. We've got a hotel in Cape Town. We've got a hotel here. And then those brands, they try to attract travelers to those places as well. And then they also work with airlines as well to get that going and so forth. So there's no need. SA Tourism, it's a vanity project. It's a vanity project. That's it. And I'll say this again. Now, people talking about, but they need to spend. Where did they get that money from? They got it from tax. And what is taxation? It is theft. So it's stolen money. That money would have been better used by the people that it was taken away from. So if Mauritius didn't need to put money in the Premier League, why does the South African government need to do it? I smell a rat. Someone is going to benefit greatly from this, and I won't be surprised if they connect it to the ANC. That's my point.
Yeah. I want to echo that, and I'm going to come to Nzuzo on that point, because often, as I realize, I spelled taxation wrong. Oh, there you go. My dumb ass got that wrong. My bad. Yes, Nzuzo. Even as I hear Dumo say this, guys, we're spending, or rather, we're blowing money that we just simply don't have. Worse yet, that is taken from poor people in South Africa and being given to rich people in a first world country. Let's not escape that point. Nzuzo, your response. And Nzuzo, you're muted,
Sorry,
Chief.
yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, Sisley really put like obviously a difficult question to me. I can't obviously say no, we must take the money from the poor and give it to rich people. Like, dog, I'll never go on BDR ever again. You know, so
No,
and of course,
disagree, it's fine.
like, no, of course you have to obviously, you know, taxation in and of itself. I'm not gonna necessarily say it's they have to do was already taking that slogan, but in any event, like the taxes are just too high, bro. And you can't just be expecting, particularly black people who just came from apartheid and all that, to now still pay like 42 rand in the sense for in taxes. Like you can't expect people to be paying so much taxes, and then after that you have situations like ESCOM and crime rates. But at the same time, you know, just going back to what Gabriel said about the issues related to the tourism industry, that's also an Industry problem. Industry, you know, instead of actually doing press statements, must be fixing that within our budget. She's not doing anything on that. And to be honest, none of the government does not actually do its actual mandate. It does not actually do what's required in terms of its mandate. And we can discuss how far that mandate must go, but in any event, things like ESCOM and crime is bad. But in the same breath, like the SA tourism guys, I'm not necessarily hurt by them spend. Firstly, I don't even know where they get such money and what's their budget like. But in any event, I'm not necessarily hurt as to what they're doing. Those type of ways of actually advertising the country are actually new ways of doing it. A lot of other countries are doing the same in other realms as well. And I think that you must be innovative in terms of how you market your country. But just going to the fundamental, I think that there's no need for you to have a tourism department because ultimately citizens can do that themselves. We can go trips to the UK, we can go trips to US, and be like, hey, bro, I'm from Africa. It's Gucci. It's fabulous. You should come over. You know, I think already, but because we already we tax so much, I can't even afford to go to Bali. You know what I mean? I have to have 2 jobs or 2 hustles to go to Bali or whatever tourist destination. Yet my government can't even keep the lights on. Not to say that it's supposed to be involved in such an industry, but in any event, it is. But you know, in terms of the people that are using this money so they can bring people over, I still think that not necessarily that's a good idea. But I'm just happy they're not stealing the money. We don't know that yet. We don't know that yet until they say, "Oh, guys, you know, there's someone that's actually benefiting from this money in corrupt ways." Dog, you know, in South African terms, I'm happy. If there's no one actually eating money, I'm happy, to be honest. And, you know, if they're doing their job, and of course, you know, some people are useless in terms of accounting, so they don't know how much they're supposed to pay. But in any event, at least they're using the money properly. Until sometimes we hear who's benefiting. But yeah, that's what I want to end it on.
Guys, I must say we've run out of time. There are quite a few topics we even didn't get to. I'm seeing even a reminder in the comment section. David Mabuza basically saying, that's it. I, the cat, my 9 lives are over. I'm resigning. It's either you guys can give me another 10 minutes just to discuss this, or we can call it. But if you guys can give me 10 minutes, just give me a thumbs up. Let me just see a room of thumbs up. If you can, give me an extra 10 minutes. I'm not seeing thumbs. Okay. All right. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, 3 out of 4. Maybe just a quick comment from everybody. A quick comment from everybody on this topic. Dumo, we had the ANC conference. The Ramaphosa faction wins it. Paul Mashatile comes into the helm as deputy president. The immediate expectation, of course, is that he's now going to become president. Nangu Umabuza saying, cheers, I'm out. I'm making way for this guy. But the president, here's what made it funny for me. The president of the republic didn't breathe a word of this issue. We had to find out from Umabuza speaking at the funeral of his brother. What's going on there?
Wow, that is very interesting. First time hearing that. I do think that it just probably shows that there is probably some sort of rift between Ramaphosa and Mabuza. So I think that it doesn't look like things are going well there, because usually when you hand in a resignation and and it's from someone in a top position, you as the president, you should say that, look, I've received the resignation of David Mabuza, and he's no longer going to be this vice president, and he's his last day in office will be on this day, that type of thing. But I mean, even that, that's a formality, but he didn't even perform that formality. And that's very worrying. It just shows that there might be a strong divide within the ANC, which I'm happy with, by the way.
Well, you and I both in that regard. But Gabriel, let me come to you, because there's a deeper issue here. And this is the same question to Gabriel, Nzuzo, and Nolu. There is a school of thought, a big daddy liberty conspiracy. Where's my tinfoil hat? Let me put that on. Here it is. Here's my theory. I think we're being prepared to accept that the deputy president role shouldn't necessarily automatically go to the deputy president of the ANC. And why? We're heading into 2024, where there'll be a need for coalitions. And you can imagine that a conversation has been had with the EFF and one red in tooth and claw commie, i.e. Julius Malema, that you know what? I'm preparing the ground here for people not accepting the de facto idea that deputy president of ANC should equal deputy president of country. Because Julius, once we lose, because the polling says we're going to come in at around 37% in 2024, we're preparing the ground for introducing you, the EFF guy, as the deputy president. Your thoughts on this, Gabriel? Gabriel, you're muted, homie.
Dang it. I think that the most likely scenario after the 2024 election is an ANC-EFF coalition to run the country. It can happen in a couple of ways. One is confidence and supply, where those two parties don't officially, they keep doing this thing. Everybody's had it, school, university, after hours at work. Those two people are together. They're sleeping together, weekends, holidays, Valentine's, birthdays. But on a Monday morning, they both come to the office, parking in different parking lots and walking in at a 5-minute interval to make it seem like they haven't come from the same very bed. This party, it's the same party. They sleep in the same bed every night and have done since the original moment of the EFF in 2014. But they can
only
keep
the complex security knows what's going on. Cizzo.
Yeah, the soap opera of those, yes. But so one option is that they keep that up. So it's confidence supply. So the EFF will vote for the ANC president. They'll vote for ANC policies like expropriation without compensation, like the procurement bill, which will triple down on BEE, etc., etc. But they will pretend to be the opposition. That's one option. The problem for the EFF in that option is it's hard for them to plug all the way into the patronage network. And it does maintain this issue for Malema of where does he go next in terms of his journey to being commander-in-chief, the chief fascist of South Africa. So the second option is that the parties officially get together. And then the issue is, how is the average EFF guy who's been knocking at the ANC and saying, we hate the ANC, you go to an EFF rally, those folks love to hate the ANC. How are the leadership who need to dribble their own followers at district level, department level, city level, within the little patronage networks. How are they going to justify to their followers, now we have to swallow our words and now we're getting in bed with the ANC? Well, partly they can say it's to keep the racist DAs out and that'll ideologically work, but only a little bit. The real thing that they have to do is they have to say, look, our guy is now on his way to being president and en route he's going to help us. And when he's there, he's going to give us all the jobs, he's going to give us all the money, it's going to be nice, nice, nice. And that only works if Malema does get a high-powered position. Now, where do you want to put him? You can make him head of the treasury, and that would actually be worse than deputy president because South Africa will be triple junk rated. We will immediately, our interest rates will become 5% even higher than they are already because it would be so scary. You make him head of police, in a way, to make him deputy president, especially if the ANC is getting in bed with the EFF, they will maintain this mentality. You can make these guys be good again. And I think the theory will be, on this scenario, it's just a scenario, but on this scenario, the theory will be, if I can have, Ramaphosa's theory will be, if I can have Malema as my deputy for 5 years, I can groom the young man. Look how he's lost weight. Look how he's matured. Look how his taste in Gucci and Versace has only become more refined and subtle. He's got the small cufflinks, not the big bling. He's becoming a man. I will make him even more of a BE billionaire and less of a rabble-rouser. And by the time comes 2029, he can run the country nicely. And to do that, I must keep him as deputy president. So I'm not saying that that's the whole story. Part of it, I think, is Mabuza's been sick. There are credible allegations that he assassinated people over stadium deals back in the province, back when he was there, schools, districting, all kinds of shady stuff around there. So, maybe he's always been like, if he makes too much of a noise, other oaks are going to come out with the dirty laundry and go after him. If he stays quiet, they'll stay quiet. That's the ANC. It's a conspiracy of not telling on each other when you've seen each other steal. As far as I can tell, that's the main glue when they talk about party unity, that's what party unity is. I won't tell them you're corrupt. I won't give the evidence if you don't give the evidence. Anyway, I think that's part of it. But I think a big opportunity is exactly what you've identified. And I think that's like that, to me, that seems like a real plausible thing that could happen. But the definite thing, if the ANC and the EFF have enough power together, not definitely they'll run the country together, but that seems much more likely than anything else.
And a very scary prospect, one which really there's merit to it insofar as what we're seeing right now. Nolu, let me be precise and specific. And again, I covered this in this week's Vuganazo insofar as the commendable work, if I can call it that, of the IFP exposing the EFF for exactly what it is. Now, of course, those of us who watch the show, those of us who talk about these issues, have always known that the EFF is just another faction of the ANC. But there are people, as Gabriel rightly pointed out, who have been dribbled, who thought the EFF is an opposition party, who would say things like, yeah, I left the ANC to be in the EFF for whatever reason, because maybe they're more radical, they're more leftist, or they are more Pan-Africanist, whatever their reasonings are. But there are people who thought the EFF is a genuine opposition party vying for power on its own steam. However, we're now seeing an EFF exposed by the IFP also quite brilliantly as always having been in it to be in bed with the ANC, ditching its alliance partners across the country in order to yoke itself to the same ANC. In the case of Durban, which a few days ago had said, we want to get rid of the useless Durban mayor, Mxolisi Kaunda, and then a few days later, vote in favor of keeping that same mayor in that motion of no confidence. The EFF are firmly in the camp of the ANC.
So true. Honestly, I didn't look at it the way that you've just analyzed it. I was believing the fact that Udedi was sick, and it was high time that he would leave that position anyways. He was really a man who was invisible. I don't know where was he or what was wrong with him. So I looked at it in that sense. But now that you've just pointed out, both you and Gabriel, it's a scary thought. But then I think it would also be an opportunity for opposition parties, for us and all other people to really rally our friends and others to be aware of this, to vote better. So I think opposition party would still need to do more work to expose the EFF and the potential of what the EFF is going to become, because it's going to be chaos if those guys do come to power. Imagine the EFF and ANC. Whew, kuzaba a mess, and it's gonna be bad for all of us, not just bad for a certain group of people, but for us. So I'd say opposition parties, they need to pump in money to campaign right now, and for people to really be aware of what is coming. Thank you for this. I didn't really see it.
Well, Nzuzo, let me throw it to you as we conclude. And I want to add one more spice to the poiki. There's a very scary scenario here where not only do we have an ANC-EFF coalition, blah, 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 but we're being prepared, as I now lose my train of thought, we're being prepared here to basically accept Julius and his flip-flopping to be, as Gabriel puts it, perhaps even eventually in 2029, the president of this country. Now, let's separate issues here. Dude, Julius is not as popular as people make him out to be. Julius is not as popular as people make him out to be. He is genuinely a media creation. But now here we are sitting in a situation where that media creation could very well become the president of this country.
Not in a million years, bro. Oh, my dear funny. I don't think that he's gonna ever. He'll never touch that seat, bro. I'm telling you now. And just going back to your first theory, bro. I don't think that you understand the greediness of ANC politicians, particularly Paul Mashatile. There's no way that this man is gonna become. He spent his life trying to rise through the ranks of the ANC. He forced himself as an MP of Parliament now. They just made him an MP, if I'm not mistaken. And he took this position to become deputy president. And he thinks that ANC still have a chance to win in the 22. So there's no, and he has a large support within the ANC, particularly because he's from Gauteng. That's a big support base in terms of the ANC. He's not going to just allow Julius to just come in and take in his place. I don't think the ANC is going to move to that extent to put Julius. Maybe they should give him the Minister of Tourism. I think Julius will do well. But like, I
breaking news: Julius Malema has a team called Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, but definitely, I don't think that Julius will get the deputy presidency. I think they will get some seats in ministry as well as DGs. They will have a say. I think that also the EFF will play as the ANC's policy tank. In that realm, every single policy is going to come from the ANC. It's also going to come from the EFF, and the ANC will just implement it. Obviously, they're incompetent, so they won't actually do what's necessary to implement it. But anyway, the EFF will be its policy tank. But I don't think CK and these theories, as juicy as they sound, there's no way that Julius Malema would ever be president of South Africa. I don't think he even has that pull in Limpopo, to be honest. So I doubt that he's going to become president. But like you said, he has a big voice in terms of the media, and he's doing a lot of groundwork in terms of getting support. But to get to a point where he's deputy president or even the president in 2029, I doubt it.
Can I just say one quick point? One quick point is
Gabriel,
that
we have run out of time. I'm going to give you 20 seconds, dude.
20 seconds, exactly, 20 seconds. Deputy presidents, F.W. de Klerk, when he was deputy president, it's not like he got the second most votes or was the second most popular politician in the country. He was less popular probably than Buthelezi and then a few guys within the ANC. So we already have this precedent of like someone from the second party or the third party being parachuted in there. That's all I'll say. But I think you probably the ANC jealousy will stop it, will try and push against that for sure.
No, good point. And I was also going to just echo that point to say the numbers are very sobering for the ANC. If there's one thing you should never underestimate is their wiliness when it comes to realizing they may lose power in something. But we'll see. I did say at the beginning that it's a tinfoil theory, a conspiracy theory. But what we do know is there'll be a lot of jostling and a lot of things being promised to the EFF ahead of 2024. With that being said, guys, final word from everybody. And in the final word, please, how do the people get in touch with you? Dumo, on Manpatria, what was the conversation on Saturday? What did you guys talk about, and how can people get in touch with Manpatria?
Yeah, we haven't released for a while now, so but we have been putting out a lot of written material. So there's a lot of written material on our website now. So if you want to read, just go to manpatria.com. If you want to reach me, you can just see me on Twitter at Dumo Denga, and you can also reach me at manpatria.com/contact.
Lovely. Nzuzo, Brazo, what can we expect from you? I know you're also part of the Manpatria team, but on social media in particular, what are you talking about generally?
Yeah, man. I'm just a lot is happening at work, so it's a lot of drama. Fuck. But in any event, if you want to reach me, please get me on Twitter as well as Instagram, Nzuzo Kathi. You'll get me there. And yeah, man, I'm happy to be on the show. Please read Manpatria's written pieces. And yeah, man, love to all of you.
Danko, Gabriel, what can the folks expect on the Daily Friend? That's dailyfriend.co.za. Comes to you Mondays to Thursday at 1:30 p.m. live.
So we'll be covering the news of the day. I'm sure that we're going to be talking about the State of the Nation address from Ramaphosa. I'm looking forward to sending another letter to the presidency. Sometimes they respond timeously, sometimes curiously. We've got quite a few campaigns that have been sort of getting some backroom work that we're looking forward to bringing forward. I'm not sure if we're going to be releasing the campaign this week coming. It's probably going to be a week after that, but an early teaser. Tax is too damn high. I feel very strongly that that's true. I disagree that tax is theft. I think you need to do some taxes so you can pay the police and the courts and the whatever. But in this country, we are being taxed. There's no value for money in the taxes we're paying. It's crazy. We need to cut taxes. And so we've been thinking pretty hard about a smart way to do that. Just put some cash back in the pockets of ordinary South Africans in a way that doesn't increase the debt, in a way that doesn't require believing the moon is made of cheese, or you can just get the unions to agree with something that they're never going to agree with, in a way that you could actually achieve. We think we've got a practical solution, and we're going to be trying to draw attention to that around SONA and especially around Budget Week. So keen on that for IRR campaigns and for Daily Friend Show goodness. And also Nicholas Lorimer, who hosts the Daily Friend Show and co-hosts Two Crickets and a Thorn Tree with me. We're going to be bringing in some guests, I think, for the first time in a year. So check out Two Crickets and a Thorn Tree. We're going to be three crickets, I think, sometimes. Okay. Thank you so much.
Lovely. Nolu, last but not least, what can the folks expect? Are you putting content out, and how do the people reach you?
Sure. I've got something I do on a weekly basis called My Thoughts and Opinions. I have it on my YouTube channel. You can check me there. I will do a long format podcast soon coming weeks. And you can find me on Twitter and all other social platforms. Other than that, thank you so much for having me. It's been a great show, Siki.
The name of the YouTube channel?
Oh, it's Nolu Maki Podcast.
Excellent. Make sure you guys check that out. Subscribe, please, to the Nolu Maki podcast. We'll definitely be collaborating with that. I'm very excited for you, Nolu. Congrats on that. And with that being said, as I get my folks off screen, thank you for watching the show. Remember, you are very much a part of Liberty and Friends, and your comments were coming in thick and fast. I appreciate all of that. And my likes ratio was absolutely perfect tonight. Guys, a major thank you to you for that. Remember, even as you're exiting right now, hit that like button, folks. It really does help spread the tentacles of the show to as many people as possible, including to all my detractors in the party political world. I've pissed off everybody this week. I've pissed off the DA, Action SA, PA, Alma, with my hashtag politicians are trash. And I really do believe that. But nonetheless, hit the like button, please, on the way out. Subscribe to the Big Daddy Liberty channel on YouTube. Guys, the numbers there are growing, and I really do appreciate you for that. Help me reach my goal of 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We've just broken the 39,000 barrier over this weekend. Thank you so much to you guys for that. I cannot begin to thank you for that in that regard. And of course, we have a website. Find us at BigDaddyLiberty.com. There, of course, you can pledge some financial support to the show. There is a payment method that suits you on there. Pledge between 50 to 100 Rand a month. It definitely helps. And I'm going to do a thank you show to those of you who are BDL Club members. Oh, I'll call the BDL Club. That's not formalized yet, but a BDL Club is coming where we'll have merch and a mug club with that, and exclusive access to certain events that we're going to be doing this year. Some big names. I even got goosebumps as I said this. Guys, we're going to be hosting events, and there's some big international podcast names who we're talking to at the moment to come down to South Africa, including a certain doctor. That's the be-all, end-all of what I'll say about that. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you tomorrow, bright and early, for another episode of Vuganazo. Remember, I come to you weekdays from 7 a.m. That's Vuganazo, your morning news analysis show. Oh, what? That's a mouthful. With that being said, thanks for watching, and remember, as I say at the end of every show, never trust a commie.